Did you know that the human body is not quietly fading with age, but constantly negotiating with it? What we often interpret as decline is not a single downward slope, but a series of biological conversations happening every day inside our muscles, our nerves, our bones, and our cells. When people say, "I'm just getting older," what they are really describing is not time itself, but the gradual loss of signals that tell the body to stay strong, responsive, and adaptable. Aging, in that sense, is not only about the passing of years. It is about what the body is repeatedly asked to do and what it is allowed to forget. For many of us, there comes a moment when we begin to notice subtle changes. Standing up from a chair requires more effort than it used to. Carrying groceries feels heavier, even when the bags are lighter. Balance feels less automatic. These changes rarely arrive suddenly. They creep in quietly, almost politely, until one day they are no longer ignorable. Society often tells us this is normal, even inevitable. But biology tells a more nuanced story, one that is both humbling and hopeful. Deep within our muscles lies a truth that scientists only began to fully appreciate in recent decades. Muscle tissue is not static. It is one of the most responsive systems in the human body. It listens constantly to mechanical signals, hormonal cues, and neural input. When muscles are challenged appropriately, they adapt. When they are ignored, they retreat. This process begins far earlier than most people realize. As early as our 30s, the body starts to lose small amounts of muscle mass and strength. At first, the changes are subtle, almost invisible. But after midlife, the rate of loss accelerates, not because the body suddenly becomes incapable, but because the signals that once preserved muscle are no longer consistently present. Scientists gave this process a name: sarcopenia. At its core, it describes the gradual loss of muscle mass and function with age. For a long time, it was viewed as an unavoidable consequence of growing older, much like wrinkles or gray hair. But unlike changes in skin pigmentation, muscle loss has profound consequences for independence, mobility, and resilience. Muscles are not just for movement. They are metabolic organs. They regulate blood sugar, support joint health, protect the spine, and even communicate with the brain through chemical messengers. When muscle declines, the entire system feels the impact. What is remarkable is how recently the scientific community began to challenge the idea that sarcopenia is irreversible. As research methods improved and long-term studies expanded, a new picture emerged. Muscle tissue, even in older adults, retains a surprising capacity for growth and renewal. The cells responsible for muscle repair and adaptation do not simply disappear with age. They become quieter, less stimulated, more dormant. When the right kind of stimulus is reintroduced, they respond, not dramatically overnight, but steadily, predictably, and meaningfully. This realization has shifted how we think about aging. Instead of asking how quickly the body is declining, researchers now ask how adaptable it remains. And again, the answer is encouraging. The body, even later in life, is not fragile by default. It is responsive. What it needs is the right conversation. Movement is the language of that conversation. But not all movement speaks equally to the body. Gentle motion has its place. Walking is valuable. Stretching feels good. But when it comes to preserving muscle and function, the body responds most strongly to movements that require it to produce force, maintain stability, and coordinate multiple systems at once. This is where strength-based movements become essential, not as a pursuit of athleticism, but as a form of biological communication. Consider the simple act of sitting down and standing up. It seems trivial until it isn't. This movement requires the coordinated effort of the hips, thighs, gluteal muscles, spine, and core. It challenges balance, joint control, and muscle strength simultaneously. When practiced intentionally, it becomes more than a daily habit. It becomes a signal to the nervous system that these pathways are still needed, still valued, still alive. The squat, when approached thoughtfully, is a reflection of this principle. It is not about depth or speed or external weight. It is about teaching the body to lower and raise itself with control. The hips hinge, the knees bend, the spine stabilizes, and the core quietly coordinates the entire process. In this movement, the body rehearses independence. It practices the very skills required to live without assistance. When muscles engage together in this way, they do more than grow stronger. They become more cooperative, more efficient, more resilient. Strength, however, is not just a property of the legs. The torso, often referred to as the core, plays a central role in almost every functional movement. It is the bridge between the upper and lower body, the stabilizing center that allows force to be transferred safely and effectively. Without adequate core strength, movements become inefficient, and strain shifts to joints and tissues that were never designed to bear it alone. The abdominal muscles are often misunderstood. Popular culture reduces them to aesthetics, but biologically, their primary role is protection and stability. They help regulate pressure within the abdomen, support the spine, and coordinate with the muscles of the back to maintain posture. As we age, this system can become less responsive, particularly if prolonged sitting or inactivity dominates daily life. Reawakening these muscles does not require dramatic motion. Sometimes it begins with subtle engagement, with learning to gently flatten the lower back, to feel the abdominal wall tighten just enough to create support. When the upper body lifts slightly from the ground in a controlled manner, supported by steady breathing, something important happens. The nervous system relearns how to recruit these deep stabilizing muscles. The spine experiences support rather than strain. Over time, this translates into better posture, reduced back discomfort, and greater confidence in movement. These changes may not feel dramatic in the moment, but they accumulate quietly, reinforcing the body's sense of stability from within. Balance is another dimension of aging that often declines unnoticed until it becomes a problem. Balance is not a single ability. It is the result of sensory input from the eyes, inner ear, joints, and muscles, combined with rapid communication through the nervous system. When strength declines, balance often follows, not because the brain forgets how to balance, but because the muscles no longer provide reliable feedback or support. Movements that challenge balance while strengthening the lower body can restore this dialogue. Stepping backward into a controlled lunge requires awareness, coordination, and trust in one's own strength. The body must manage shifting weight, maintain alignment, and generate force through both legs. This is not merely an exercise. It is a rehearsal for real life, where uneven ground, unexpected movements, and daily tasks demand similar skills. What makes backward stepping particularly valuable is its gentleness on the joints. By moving into the lunge rather than forward into it, stress on the knees is reduced, while the hips and gluteal muscles take on a greater share of the work. This redistribution of load reflects an important principle in healthy movement. When the right muscles do their share, the body feels safer, smoother, and more capable. Upper body strength plays an equally important role in independence, though it is often overlooked in later life. Pushing, pulling, carrying, and bracing against the environment are fundamental human actions. They allow us to open doors, rise from the floor, protect ourselves from falls, and interact confidently with our surroundings. When upper body strength declines, people often compensate by moving less, further accelerating loss. The act of pushing the body away from a surface, whether the floor, a wall, or a countertop, teaches the shoulders, arms, and chest to work together in harmony. It also reinforces core engagement, as the torso must remain stable while the arms generate force. This integrated effort is what makes such movements so valuable. They train the body as a system rather than isolating individual parts. Perhaps one of the most revealing movements of all is the glute bridge. On the surface, it appears simple. The hips lift, the pelvis rises, the body presses into the ground. Yet beneath this simplicity lies a powerful indicator of functional health. The gluteal muscles are among the largest and most important in the body. They drive walking, climbing, standing, and stabilizing the pelvis. When they weaken, other muscles attempt to compensate, often leading to back discomfort, inefficient movement, and increased risk of injury. Relearning how to activate the gluteal muscles intentionally restores a fundamental pattern of human movement. It reconnects the hips to the core, the legs to the spine. When performed with awareness, this movement teaches the body to generate power without strain, to support itself from the ground up. The ability to lift the hips repeatedly, even modestly, reflects a capacity for independence that extends far beyond the exercise itself. What ties all of these movements together is not intensity, but consistency. The body does not require extremes to adapt. In fact, it often resists them. What it responds to most reliably is regular, progressive challenge. A small increase in effort, repeated week after week, sends a clear message to the nervous system: this function matters. The tissues respond by strengthening, reinforcing, and reorganizing themselves around that demand. This principle is reflected in the way tissues heal and adapt throughout life. Bone responds to load by becoming denser. Muscle responds to tension by growing stronger. Tendons respond to gradual stress by becoming more resilient. None of these processes occur in response to a single event. They unfold through repetition, patience, and respect for the body's timelines. In clinical settings, this truth becomes visible in the stories of individuals who reclaim abilities they believed were lost. People who once struggled to walk short distances find themselves moving with greater ease. Tasks that felt exhausting become manageable. Confidence returns, not because the body has become young again, but because it has become capable again. Capability, more than youth, is what defines functional aging. There is something deeply human about this process. It reminds us that the body is not an object we own, but a living system we participate in. Each movement is a conversation. Each effort is a vote for continued engagement with life. Aging in this light becomes less about resisting time and more about maintaining dialogue with our own biology. Scientific curiosity has shown us that decline is not always the correct narrative. Adaptation persists. Plasticity remains. The body listens. When we move with intention, respect, and patience, we are not fighting age. We are cooperating with physiology. We are giving the body reasons to stay responsive, reasons to remain capable, reasons to continue supporting the life we want to live. And perhaps that is the most profound insight of all. Health in later life is not defined by perfection or performance. It is defined by participation, by the willingness to show up for the body, to offer it consistent challenges, and to trust in its remarkable capacity to respond. When we do that, strength becomes more than muscle. It becomes a quiet confidence, rooted in science, guided by awareness, and sustained by compassion for the body, that carries us through every stage of life.